Welcome to Chart's free webinar series. Today we have with us Amanda Zellman and Lori Goldstrom of Kava and Rachel Nordby of Wisetail, presenting on Beyond Training, Enriching the Lives of Your Whole Employee. Welcome, Amanda, Lori, and Rachel, and thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you. We're excited to be here and continuing this conversation. Right, so this is Rachel from Wisetail. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us to this co-hosted webinar. I'm really very pleased to be continuing this conversation with Lori and Amanda today. Thank you both so much for joining this conversation and being willing to dive into it again with us. I say again because we actually recently did a panel on this very topic at our recent Wisetail annual conference about 2 to 3 weeks ago. Amanda was able to join us in Bozeman for that panel, and today we're lucky enough to have both Lori and Amanda. So clearly, we at Wisetail really we understand this topic and the Whole You initiative to be an important one. So we are glad to bring this to a wider audience today, and it's, as I said, one that's close to our heart, and one that we see really taking shape and growing across our entire audience, our entire client base, both in the restaurant industry, but also really across our audience base, you know, as a whole across a variety of industries. Quick introductions. Lori Goldstrom is VP of Ops Services, and she helps direct an industry-leading team at Kava. Alongside her, Amanda Zellman is Kava's learning experience designer. She helps really conceptualize and deliver some of the most robust material out there. Thank you both so much for being with us today. Before we jump into our discussions, and we're going to roll through a number of questions, and really looking at, you know, where this initiative came from, what it brings to Kava, and so on. I want to first examine what we mean by this term "whole you." Make sure that we're all kind of on the same page about this kind of large term that we're talking about here, and really why higher turnover industries like the restaurant business should care about it, and should spend time and effort in launching and maintaining such initiatives. So you can see here I've got the Next Gen Wellness Program, but that still feels a little jargony. So I think Whole You, if we take a step back, kind of pretty much does what it says on the tin. It looks at the employee as an entire person, you know, not just as a worker bee. Whole You really understands that there are a multitude of influences and elements that go into making a successful and productive employee and therefore workplace. And many of those elements are outside of what we typically think of as kind of positional training, right? So Whole You starts to think about what are the things that help make people bring their best selves to the office every single day. So I think until recently, businesses, when they hear wellness, they think, you know, gym membership, maybe bike to work incentives, you know, perhaps a PTO scheme, and those are fine. But uptake is maybe generally sort of middling to low, and perhaps impact is the same. So we're also beginning to think that, you know, they really, you know, do those schemes develop brand loyalty? Do they make you as an employer more attractive? Do they really have an impact on employee retention, time to onboarding, that kind of stuff? They also tend to be a little higher cost initiatives. So again, if we're thinking about higher turnover roles, what is the benefit of investing in something like that? So I think that's a big picture look at kind of what we mean by whole you and some of the alternative approach to these initiatives and how they're being brought to life in the WiseTel LMS and specifically Kava. So we can now kind of start to jump into some of our discussion items and take a look at how Kava is doing this and kind of dive in. So this is a picture, a screenshot right here of Kava's homepage on the WiseTel LMS. As you can see, just from this kind of top snapshot here, the Kava team used WiseTel to deliver way more than just position-based training. They host an abundance of alternative content. It pertains to personal and professional development, the Kava community, employee wellness, community-focused initiatives. What we're going to focus on today is that actually what you see in the top banner at the top of the page, and then that blue ringed page in your bottom right corner, Kava Me. It is an entire page dedicated to a range of content that focuses on really the whole employee that we were just talking about. So you can see here there's person development, there's things about financial advice, budgeting tools, dietary and healthy living information, self-improvement. I mean, it just kind of goes on and on. It really is truly robust. So with that as a kind of a top-level introduction, let's jump in, Lori and Amanda. I guess starting from the very beginning and running with this kind of big picture, top-down look, I was talking about whole you from the WiseTel perspective, but what does whole you mean to you two and Kava as an organization?
At Kava, we kind of see whole you as a way for us to connect with all of our team members outside of work and outside of their typical training to help enrich their lives in a lot of different ways by providing them with tools and resources for personal growth, development, and also just to have fun.
To have fun?
Yes.
Yeah, I love that's also an element. I think that's, really understands that, we're not all work and no play. I think that's a wonderful additional leg to be adding into your understanding of whole you. That's great. So if we jump into, what's the origin story? What is the genesis for Kava Me? I guess where did the idea come from, and why did you choose to go down this path?
All right, so I'm going to go way back to when Kava first started. Our founders, Kit, Ike, and Dimitri, were in the restaurant business. Their parents were first-generation immigrants in the United States. They came from Greece, and when they came to the United States, they were working in restaurants. And Ted, Ike, and Dimitri saw how they were treated when they were growing up. And people who work in restaurants weren't always treated great. And as they say, people in restaurants, it wasn't like a real job. And nobody considered it real work or a real career path. And they wanted to change all of that. So back when we first opened that restaurant 11 plus years ago, they were thinking about this then. And really how to ensure that people have a really great career path in the restaurant industry. So that brings us to today, when we have the fast casual versions of Kava Meze, which we have now Kava. Our VP of People and Culture and we sat down and said, how can we lift this out every day at Kava and ensure that we're enriching people's lives every day at work and away from work? And when we sat down and talked about this, we were talking about a learning management system. And we were looking for a learning management system that could do this for us. And that's when we found WiseTel. And And we knew that when we partnered with them, that we could realize this dream of ours of really providing 2 ways of training for a team member, something that they do at work, and then something they can take home with them and enrich their lives in other ways, other than other ways in their personal lives with their friends and family.
Lori, that is a fabulous story. It really sounds like this is ingrained in Kava's DNA.
It is. It's been since I started when we had 9 restaurants until today, where we have, I think, 68 restaurants. It's always been part of our DNA of who we are at Kava.
If we kind of jump off of the LMS, was this initiative, was there a Kava Me initiative running prior to the LMS? Was this something that you brought into the digital world, or is this kind of the first time you've really rolled this out to your employees now that you have the LMS?
Well, before we had the LMS, we did little things, but we did them mainly for our team at the support center and not so much with the team members in our restaurant. And that's we have almost 2,000 employees in our restaurants today and only 100 people at our support center today. So the bigger audience was really our team members. So we needed to find a way as we grew to be able to touch every single person in our restaurant.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that the platform allowed you to be able to do that. This is such a cool story. Something that for the webinar viewers, what you didn't see in our screenshot was that there is a welcome video from both of your founders on the Kava Me page, and it kind of really sets the tone for something that, to what you were talking about, Lori, like this is something that they really are passionate about and they believe in and really feel strongly about. So it's just a really well thought out program, and it really comes from the top down. It's very cool.
Yep.
Okay, let's jump into our next question, get a little bit more tactical. We were talking a little bit earlier about how this kind of program differs from some of the traditional wellness programs, if you will, the gym memberships and other kind of like discounted swag type programs. Do you want to expand on that a little bit for how tactically this differs from other wellness programs, or maybe something you may have done before or experienced
Absolutely.
in other parts of the industry?
Yeah, absolutely. Whenever I think of a wellness program, I don't necessarily think of what we have today. I think of something that's focused on people's physical health as like a traditional way of doing this. So the traditional benefits, like you mentioned earlier, like the gym memberships, the discounts on programs, and we really wanted to take it a step further. And number one, not just focus on who's in our office, but also focus on who's in our restaurant. And there's a couple things that we wanted to do with it. So part of the whole you, part of you is your family as well. So we want somebody to leave Kava, go home, and log into Kava Me and sit down with their family and share it together. So we put things on there that can help them at home as well as at work. So I think that is one thing that's very different than what I've seen in the past. So for example, somebody can go and maybe their husband or wife is applying for a job and they can go online and get better writing skills on how to build a resume and share it with their families or with their kids. They can look and see, I can go get a movie discount, or we do shout outs on certain items during certain seasons. So it's back to school time, we'll give certain discounts on school supplies for their children. So it's more of that, their whole life, not just themselves, but also who they share their lives with, their friends and family. And I think that's probably the biggest differentiator of ours.
Oh, we might have lost you there. I love that as a differentiator. Understanding whole you is who you share your lives with and who you go home to. That's something that we at WiseTale have been thinking about, really a lot, because it's what helps you be your best self when you come to work is very much about what helps you be your best self in your entire life. I mean, we come to work as a part of everything else that we do, and I think this you're executing on that just so well in this. Your family, your friends. What are the resources that we can sort of bring everyone up with? Really very cool.
Thank you. And another point that Rachel is we know that not all of our employees are going to stay with us forever. We know that they're going to go out, get other jobs, and we want them to be a better version of themselves when they do that. So we want to make them better as a whole. So when they leave us at some point, that they can get that job that they really strive for. Or they can get the education that they need in their future lives.
Yeah, that is such a fantastically holistic understanding of the employees that you work with, right? Like, it would be probably pretty blinkered to think like these are going to be the people who are with us forever, but let's make sure that their experience with us is one that sets them up to do better things and move on to the next big step. That's incredible. That's very, very cool. Carrying on with some of the tactical things, to that point where, so how, like, let's look at, like, take a step back and look at how you manage this. I mean, there's an element of launching this program, building a page, putting the content out. But what kind of a commitment does it take to maintain? Do you delegate? Do you have,
It's been a pretty big commitment since we've launched. I know Lori mentioned that we just kind of started in partnership with our VP of People and Culture, and it's continued that way. So our People and Culture team has played a really integral role in helping us maintain the site. We're on a monthly cadence, so every month we add new content to Kava Me, and we try to hit every single bucket that you saw on the previous slide each time, so that we're always kind of catering to anyone at Kava who might be interested in consuming that material. So we work really closely with the team to create that content and then also to communicate it. So we have a monthly newsletter that we send out that really kind of advertises for the site to push those new items to everybody, let them know what's new, what might be interesting for them. And another thing that we've done is over the summer we had support of interns as well. So in addition to our typical team, we had even more hands in this to really provide new and fresh ideas for the content, and then also to start creating it. And one of our interns had a really strong design background, so he was able to create the template for our newsletter so that it makes it a little bit easier and more scalable for us moving forward, so we can just kind of plug in new information and send that out. So I think to get it started, it was a big lift, and then to maintain it, it continues to be a good amount of work to kind of keep things fresh and exciting and to keep our teams engaged and interested in what we have going on.
Yeah, I love capitalizing on interns to get things set up for the rest of the year. Do you ever delegate, or not delegate, I guess, do you ever reach out to your community to get ideas for topics or content or, anything that they have found that would be interesting? Is that something that you do or have thought about doing? We have partnered with our community, not necessarily for idea creation, which I think is a great idea, but for our content creation. So we've partnered with a local personal trainer who owns a couple of gyms in the area, and she's helped us create videos for healthy eating and for different fitness tips and workouts that are really catered specifically to our Kava audience, which has been really great. Not only to kind of provide a platform for her to get the word out about her expertise, but also for our employees to learn from her. And we've also, our Kava has nonprofit partnerships in each of our markets.
So we've used Kava Me as a way to kind of get the word out about those partnerships and give ideas for our team members to really get involved in their own communities as well.
Cool. We kind of very smoothly segued into that second question, which is, do you come up with all of the material in-house? But sounds like you have a couple interesting partnerships. You've got a partner that you work with for the fitness content. Do you have any other resources that are kind of go-to places for inspiration or material? Like, do you use any web content? Is there stuff that you pull from YouTube, anything like that?
Yeah, we do curate a lot of content from YouTube, from Google. If we think of a topic and do some research on it, then we like to, pull out what we think is not only perspective that we think would be valuable to share with our audience, but also content that's consumable for a wide variety of people. So, short, fun videos and articles that are really simple, that can really catch people's attention right away and just get to the point. We know people's time is limited, so we really appreciate any time that they're spending on the site outside of work. So really want to make sure that they can get the information they're looking for as quickly as possible. So we use that not only as content that we'll pull and host on the site, but also as inspiration for things that we might write or create on our own as well.
And I think our biggest inspiration, where we get our ideas from, is the people who work in our restaurants every day. We have a lot of unique personalities, a lot of diversity in our restaurants. So we have to ensure that we're gearing all of our content to what people want, of all age ranges, all nationalities. So everybody has some sort of interest in what's happening on Kava Me.
How do you, is that something that right now you're doing based off of what you know about your employees, or is there any other way that you're making sure that you're, I love that, like thinking about age, ethnicity, backgrounds. Is there any way that you kind of formally do that, or is that currently something that it's just more based off of your knowledge of your employee base?
Before we launched the site, our people support manager had been going into the restaurants and really asking people what they wanted to see and kind of gauging excitement around different topics. So we had that kind of direct, I don't want to say interview because it wasn't that formal, but got a lot of input from our restaurants directly when the site was being created. And we really like to keep those lines of communication open. So we have an email address that's associated with Kava Me. So if people have ideas or things that they're really excited about or passionate about, either seeing or even creating themselves, we're always open to hearing those ideas. And in addition to that, we have used some of the Wisetail features, so polls on our homepage where we can give a couple of suggestions and see what gets the most traction, as well as some of the comments on the content itself. If people are engaging with it, then we know that it's something that they want to see more of. If people aren't engaging with it, then maybe next time we pick a different topic to really dive into.
Nice. I love that you're using polls in that way. Thanks for the little feature plug. Okay, well, let's jump into the next question. Again, this is going to kind of zoom out again. But we talked briefly about why, high turnover industries should care about whole you type initiatives. And you've touched on this a couple times, like not only in the origin story you shared, but also in, the way that you think about whole you and really, your family and who you share your life with. Where do you see the biggest need for, program improvements within, your industry as a whole?
I think what we found so far is that there really isn't a lot of this that exists today. And so I think it would be great to see the industry move toward kind of this whole you approach. And I think that in starting to build this out, it became really evident because one of the challenges that we faced is when you're creating content from the internet for some of our content focuses on personal development skills. So that might be public speaking or email writing skills or presentation skills. And a lot of the settings for those articles or those videos was really like classroom focused or conference room focused. And that's a really hard thing for us to just put on our LMS and just expect people to connect with, because our restaurant employees' day-to-day lives are not in classrooms. They're not in conference rooms. So if there is more appetite from the industry for, you know, resources for these softer skills and developing those, then I think that there will be more that will be created that we can pull from, and it will make kind of building out a site like this a lot more simple and quick for anyone who decides to do it in the future.
I think that's a really interesting point, Amanda. I mean, I think as workplaces in general change, not just in the restaurant industry, something that, you know, we at WiseTel are finding as we're talking to clients is that there's a lot of content that's not really immediately applicable to them. You know, as businesses become more and more casual, and we're still kind of retroactively looking at content that's, like, as you were saying, set in conference rooms, set with people in formal business attire, it just makes it that much less relatable. It's kind of
I agree. And for us, as you know, we're sitting in an office today, I don't even really relate to a lot of the things that we've seen that are kind of your number one searches on your YouTube or your Google.
No, it's something that we're hearing more and more. And I think we're probably getting to a tipping point, but it's certainly applicable. I mean, it's certainly a big issue for restaurants where that's definitely not the case. But I think, you know, even in the tech world, we're pretty casual and don't have some of those more formal settings, or even the scenarios don't kind of quite line up with our daily lives. Let's move on to kind of some of the more kind of brass tacks type questions. Are you measuring impact? Is there any feedback you've received? I have a question actually coming in from the audience that kind of relates to this. Like, do you have an understanding of percentage of employees who are participating in this content? Like, do you watch those metrics and use them in any way?
So we've been watching the metrics. We have a couple of different avenues that we've been looking into and are working toward formalizing it. But we look to our WiseTel metrics a lot. So who's accessing the site, who's completing the content. I know there are probably some who aren't familiar with the WiseTel LMS in the audience, but for all of our required training, we offer points to reward for completions of the training. We don't do that on Kava Me because we really want to ensure that this is an optional part of the site for them to engage with. So we found that sometimes people will, go to the site and not necessarily complete it, but we don't know if that's because they haven't completed it or because they don't feel that they need to because there's no points for them to receive. So we're also adding another layer to that and looking into Google Analytics to see when people are accessing it, which part of the site are getting the most traction, at what time. So we can also know when the best time is to send out our newsletter and things like that. And again, we keep the qualitative lines of communication open via our email address, as well as conversations and comments on our material.
Nice. Yeah, I think that using Google Analytics to take a little more deeper look at some of the page analytics and how people are navigating around the site will be really interesting. And I love that points are so powerful, and then when users don't see points, sometimes they might be reviewing the content, they just forget to mark done or whatever it might be. Yeah, no points to Kava here.
We love building that habit of click and mark done, and now coming back to haunt us.
So before we open up, to QA to the audience, I think the last question or discussion point I had here was, do you have any advice for teams that are maybe just starting this process, who don't know where to start? Anything that you have found particularly helpful in conceptualizing or getting this off the ground?
I think we have a lot of advice for people just starting this. We've made a lot of mistakes along the way, and probably the one thing that we did when we first launched it was we didn't have a big arsenal of content to keep it fresh every month. So we were constantly playing catch up with keeping the site fresh. So instead, before launching it, have maybe 4 months worth of content ready to launch, so you can continue to research as you go, and then you're always easily putting on fresh content. And I think one of the things Amanda said earlier that's really important to doing this is that you do keep it fresh and new for your audience. So having a regular cadence of how you work is really important. So if team members are expecting you to do the first Monday of every month, something live goes onto your site, they will go there and they will get it and they'll know that it's coming, instead of just doing random things and not really putting a plan to it. One of the biggest things that is important when managing something like this is to treat it just like any other operational training that you're doing in your restaurant. So once you start thinking that this is optional material, you may not do your cadence, or you may not put content up as quickly as you should. So think of it as required for people. So you're always thinking of, everybody's going to take this course, and I need it to be the best. I need it to be branded. I need it to look like everything else, so that people will come back and view it again. And then I think probably the biggest, thank you. I think the biggest piece of advice, Rachel, is to, in the beginning when you're putting this together, is also to figure out what your feedback loop is. So how are you gathering feedback from the people using it? How are you going to analyze it? How are you going to measure success on it? And figure out what that feedback cycle is going to be, so that people know that their voices are going to be heard. And if they say they want something on there, that you're actually going to listen to them and take it to heart, and then they'll see their content that they requested. I think it's really rewarding for the team members to see that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, essentially that is, treat this content with exactly the same respect that you treat any other type of content on your site, and really loop it into all of your content calendars, loop it into all of your production timelines. Don't think of it as a separate initiative, is basically what you're saying, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, that's invaluable. And also plan ahead and have some stuff in your arsenal. Always important.
Yeah. Made that mistake. It's not fun. No, it was not fun.
Okay, well, that wraps up our kind of more formal discussion section of the webinar. We do have a couple questions I've seen coming in from the audience that we can roll through. Let me just pull a couple of these up. I am going to, one ahead. So let's see here. I have something from Katie Carr. Since rolling out this plan, have you noticed any correlation with employee retention when you commit to your employees this way? This is kind of going back to that ROI piece.
Yeah, I'm not really sure how to answer this, because at the same time that we rolled this out, we rolled out a lot of other initiatives. So it's really hard to see a clear correlation between just one program. But some of the KPIs that we were looking at as we were doing this were turnover, 90-day turnover, retention, of course, and then internal What am I thinking? Yeah, internal promotions in our restaurants too. So we were taking a look at all of those. But again, it's hard. It's hard when it's not a clear number or a clear correlation with the Kava site. We've done a lot over the last year and a half with people and culture in our restaurants.
That's a great point. When you launch a bunch of things together, it can be hard to pinpoint metrics. But maybe it's something that is something I was thinking about a little bit is I wonder if, these kinds of programs, they help with employee retention. They also may help with, and these are softer and hard to put numbers around, but do they help at all with brand loyalty and word of mouth and sort of the hiring? That's very soft and a little bit outside of any metrics that we can look at in the LMS, but do you think that programs like these have that kind of an effect as well?
I think maybe not necessarily for hiring. We don't do a lot of promotion of this outside of the company, but where it does help is referrals. So somebody that's currently working at Kava to tell their friends, and then their friends get a job, and referral, people stay with us longer when they're referred by a friend.
Yeah, that's a great point. Okay, one other one that I'm seeing come in here from Mike Andrews. He's asking about how you handle and navigate labor laws as employees are taking these courses sort of at home and not on work time. Is that something you're concerned about, or how do you communicate that internally?
So we were definitely, when we launched this, we wanted to make sure we were really, really clear that this is separate from the traditional training. All the content that you find on Kava is completely agnostic of a role or of Kava. There is some content that is more specific to Kava, but it's all publicly available. So if we do like a public employee spotlight on our website, we might put that on Kava, but it's something that anyone outside of Kava could access at any time. And that's also the reason why we didn't put any point value on these courses. We don't want people to feel that they have to take them. And in the intro video from our CEO and our COO, they reiterate that everything is completely optional. So we really try to draw a really distinct line between the stuff that you'll see on Kava and then your traditional training, including the branding is different as well. So when you're on a Kava page versus a Kava page, which is what we call our training side of the LMS.
Yeah, nice. Well, okay. Ooh, it looks like we have one more come in. We talked a little bit about this earlier on, but when you're keeping it fresh and sort of planning ahead a couple months in advance, so do you always ladder up to the existing topics you have on page, and what are the topics that you're looking at?
So we have 6 broad topics, and we intentionally left them really broad because beneath each there's a lot of subtopics and a lot of room for kind of adding things in after the fact. So we have personal development, so that's more of your like soft skills. We have community, so different events in your community, as well as discounts. We have health and wellness, so that's your physical and nutrition information, technology, finance, and one Kava. So that's more of the stuff that you'll see, kind of integrating what you'll see on our live Kava site, and some of Kava's partnerships come to life on the LMS.
Nice, very cool.
There's another part of the question, I think. Or no, oh yeah, we kept those buckets are pretty broad, so beneath each you'll find a lot of wiggle room for other topics. So I do sometimes find myself thinking when we have a suggested topic, like, oh, it could fit here, and
there's never nowhere for it to go. There's usually multiple places where it could fit.
Yeah, you've done yourself a favor with keeping it nice and broad.
Yeah.
Another question. This is kind of a little more about just LMS management, but it's applicable here. And so we know Lori and Amanda. Amanda, you're sort of working on the site daily. How many other team members do you pull on a regular basis to help manage the site in Kava Me?
So for Kava Me, we have support from 3 individuals on our people and culture team, which has been really helpful. And then we have the support of 2 summer interns. Beyond that, Lori and I are kind of the main owners of the training piece of the site. So yeah, we have lots of support on the Kava Me side.
Okay, very cool. I think that's about it from what we're having come in this afternoon. So before we end, Lori and Amanda, do each of you have a favorite piece or topic within the Kava Me page?
My favorite piece is pretty much all of the videos that Virginia, who does our fitness and nutrition videos, I think she does a really great job of speaking to our audience. There's one video that she does that's how to, build a healthy bowl at Kava. So it's really, really relatable and really customized to our audience, which I love. And also, I just enjoy that topic in general. So I think that's something that I get excited about and that our team members do as well. And,
awesome.
And that's my favorite as well. And we're talking earlier, and I think it's because it tells a story where some of everything else that we have is very, very like class oriented. So with Virginia's story in particular, her first date with her now husband was at a Kava restaurant. So hearing her story us and why she did this for us, and then coming back and seeing new and different workouts, although I don't work out. I just love the storytelling part of it because I think that's ingrained in most of us who are in the learning and development industry.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. Well, ladies, thank you so much for joining us today. This is a lot of fun, and thank you for putting this program out into the world and bringing it to your employees. It's something that I think we can all aspire to and is really inspiring. So thank you both for all the work you've put into it and talking about it with us today.
Thank you, Rachel. Thanks, Rachel.
And thank you everyone for joined us, and we will sign off.
Anyone who's still on this recording, the webinar will be recorded on the website by the end of the day, and you can find all of the previous webinars recorded there as well. Thank you, everyone. Our next webinar will be in 2 months.